Back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle, your inside look into Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell. I am your host. Pleased to be joined each and every week by Mark Jarsfer, of course, the head football coach at Gladwin. How are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good. So another win this week. Got the big win against Shepherd. So kind of take us through the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was about as clean of a first half of football as we've played all year. When you look at all three phases, we really did a good job of executing in all of them. That allowed us to really get off to a good start. I think that the halftime score ended up being 49-7 or something along those lines, which included a drive with I think we got the ball with about 2 minutes left to go in the half, and it was a good opportunity for us to try to execute on our hurry up no huddle offense, and we were able to go down the field and right around a minute and get six on the board, and so a great way to cap off that half, and like I said, just good execution in all three phases. In the second half, much like we've talked about in other games where the score is a little lopsided, it was a good opportunity for some of our younger guys or inexperienced guys to get in the game and get some reps and get on film so that we're able to continue to coach them up and get them the experience that they're going to need going into the end of this season and for some of them into next year, and so all in all, a great game for us. Great night, homecoming, packed house, great environment. Weather was perfect, just that one of those chill, crisp fall days with no rain and really just a perfect night.
Absolutely. Just coming off a big win like this, obviously, the two big wins after two tough losses a few weeks ago. Well, how do you feel like going in, heading into the last 3 weeks of the season? We'll obviously get to this week's opponent later on in the show.
Yeah, I mean, this was exactly what we needed, and we planned on having happen. Obviously we didn't plan on those two losses, but after that was the reality, and we're sitting there at 2-2. We spent a lot of time talking with the team about how if we just cleaned up the little things that hampered us in those big games, we would be a really good football team. And so that's been our focus, and being super intentional with those things at practice and the way that we operate. And we're seeing those things show up on Friday nights now. And so, getting those two wins back to back and having both of them be, rather convincing is good for us from a momentum standpoint. And, we hope to keep it going this week.
And the final score was Gladwin 56, Shepherd 20. Yeah. So now it's time to talk about your MVPs of the week.
Yeah, I was looking on offense, and I'm like, man, it would be really easy to give it to Colton again. He played a really good game. I think he was like 8-9 passing for 118 yards, two touchdowns. He had four carries for 68 yards and a touchdown, and played about as good of a game as he's played all year. But when you look at our overall statistics of 36 offensive plays for 296 yards, I mean, so when you're right around 9 yards a play, that's because of your offensive line. I mean, they're obviously providing big time opportunities for you. And so I would have to say our offensive MVP goes to our entire offensive line, which is composed of homecoming king Matthew Lechner, Max Bars, Gunnar Smith, Harvey Grove, and Caden Reed. And we talked a lot about those guys in that group on this show in the preseason, and wondering how they were going to gel together, being that all five of them are brand new starters in this season. And they've really kind of come into their own, and they're doing a really good job for us. And like I said, when you can average 9 yards a play, it means you have some pretty incredible offensive line play going on. And so I'm glad that they're hitting their stride as we head down the stretch here, and hope to see them continue to build on it and really be a strength for us going into the postseason.
Yeah. Defensive MVP.
Defensive MVP would have to be Harvey Grove. He ended up with 14 tackles, which is a big night for somebody in our defense. Generally, the leading tackler is right around like 10, 11, 12 at the most, and so to get 14 of them is a big deal. And like I talked about before, with him, it's crazy to think that he's only a sophomore, and he just continues to grow and get better. And that's the crazy thing too, is his game doesn't come without some flaws too, and he knows that. And so he has a super high ceiling, and the more that he continues to improve, the more dominant of a force he's going to become for us on defense. And he really is one of those guys that kind of sets the tone for us on that side of the ball. Special teams would have to go to our kicker, Eric Rogo. He was, I believe, 8 of 8 on extra points, as well as 9 kickoffs, 4 of which were touchbacks. And we really didn't give up anything in the way of return yards. And so he does a good job when you're able to get touchbacks. 4 of them. That means the other team is starting on their own 20. They got to go 80 yards against our defense, and we feel pretty good about that whenever that's the case. And so he's done a good job for us, and I'm sure he'll continue to do a great job for us. And he's our special teams MVP for this week.
All right. How'd the JV team do this week?
So the JV team moved to 5-1 with another win, obviously over Shepherd. That was a good Shepherd team too, if I'm not mistaken. They were like 4-1 or something like that. And so they continue to just develop and do the things that are needed to pick up the wins along the way too. That game was kind of a game where we got off to a lead, and then Shepherd would come back and make things interesting, and then we would extend the lead, and then they'd come back and score again, and then they just kept fighting through and did what they needed to do to take home the W. And so they're chugging right along and doing a great job this year.
Okay. The middle school program, how'd they do this week?
So the middle school program went 0-2 this week. So obviously a 7th grade loss and an 8th grade loss. However, they played a really good Bay City Western program. And that was one of the things that we knew with getting into this league, is there's going to be some teams that were extremely challenging for us to face, and this was certainly one of them. I think I looked over during our 8th grade game, and I don't know exactly how many kids we have on the 8th grade team, but it's right around 20. And you look over, and I feel like Bay City West, when we counted, had 29 just standing on the sideline. And so that's a pretty big size discrepancy there. But it's not like the game was not competitive either. That's the crazy thing I want to say. The 8th grade fought back to bring it a little bit close in the 4th quarter there, and made it was like 28-14 or 28-16 or something like that was the final. And 7th grade was like 28-6 or something along those lines. And again, like obviously we try to win the game, and that's always going to be a small part of the goal. But as I say every single week on here when we're talking about these programs, JV and junior high, the main point with them is development and teaching them our ways and how to do things right, and just continue to learn our scheme and improve, and so they're doing everything that they should, and they're right on track.
All right. Let's get to the staff member of the week.
Yeah, so this would be a good time, I think, to talk about Hunter Williams. He's one of our, assistant varsity coaches, another volunteer coach. We're blessed to have, lots of volunteers that help us out in really critical roles. And Hunter's kind of a fun story, because, he was a kid that I found back in it would have been 2020 season, because his senior year was the COVID year. He was just an athletic kid that I noticed on the basketball court and playing baseball, and he really didn't do anything in the fall. I had him in PE class, and I'm like, how come you don't, play anything in the fall? He's like, I don't know. I just don't really have a good answer. So, of course, I put on like the full court press, to get him out and join our program. And, he took a chance, and he was a really really good player for us. I remember, when that Dexter team came up here that had, Cole Cabana and the Parachek brothers and various other guys. Hunter as a first-year player was matched up on the big Parachek brother that plays for Michigan State now, and did a good job of limiting him. I'd say it's hard to really shut down any of those big-time players like that, but did a good job of limiting him and really just showed that he was crafty and a high IQ player, which is special for a kid that hasn't played really any high school football other than going into his senior year. And so, that was something that I kind of identified and thought highly of. And so as soon as he graduated, I tried to get him on staff. It's like, hey, you were able to pick up all these things super quickly. And we'd love to have you on board and see how you can learn and develop as a coach. And so now, with my brother leaving, and that's who I had talked to on the headsets for most of my career when calling an offense. Hunter has done a nice job of kind of stepping into that role and talking offensive schemes with me, and has really started to earn my trust in a lot of ways, with play calling and play designs and things like that. And so he's been really, really great to have around. He's been coaching with us, obviously since his playing days of 2020. And he's somebody that is continuing to improve, and then with him improving, it improves us, and so very thankful for having him around.
Yeah. Okay, now let's get to this week's opponent, the final opponent in division play for the Jack Pine Conference. I believe we're already in week 7, but Midland Bullock, you guys are going to Midland Bullock Creek. So finishing out the regular season, the last 3 games on the road. Of course, this week Midland Bullock Creek, and then of course the crossover game week 8, and then of course finishing out the regular season at Frankenmuth. What's heading into this week, final opponent, new coach on this staff? How do you feel going into this week?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that we got to see in our preseason scrimmage, that 4-team scrimmage that we went to over in Freeland. And that's a long time ago, though. Teams change, and I'm sure they're certainly a different team than they were then, and we're a much different team than we were at that point as well. And so one thing that I know is always going to hold true with those Bullock Creek teams is they're going to be very big, and they're going to be very physical. And that shows up on film, in every game that we've had. Obviously they haven't had a ton of success as far as the win category goes, the last few weeks. But much like I said with Shepherd, that they're going to be bringing it, and that they're going to be prepared, and they know that this is a big opportunity to kind of get a statement win, to potentially turn around their season and their program going into the off season after these next couple of weeks. And so our guys have to be prepared, and obviously we'll get them to a point where we feel like they're in a good spot going into the game, and that'll give us an opportunity to be successful. But just like I'm gonna tell the kids, they better make sure that their chin straps are buckled on a little extra tight this week, because Creek loves to hit, and they love to be physical. And so you got to match that if you want to have success.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Flying G Huddle. Tune into next week's show where we'll recap this week's game against Midland Bullock Creek, and we'll preview whoever they decide to let Gladwin play. Of course, that is the crossover. So we'll talk to you next week.